solar sector. So that's just a brief introduction of mine. So a little bit about EDF. So Environmental Defense Fund. It is the largest environmental advocacy groups working towards climate change and social justice. So EDF has this Climate Corps Fellowship every year. So they pair the new grad students with the companies and local institutions to meet their energy goals. It has a wide network of more than 3,500 people, and it has been doing this from last 17 years. So for my today's presentation, we'll start with City of Durham's climate change goals, then a little bit about the project problem statement, then we'll explore a few of the backup power infrastructure options, and detailed analysis and recommendations. So, City of Durham has quite ambitious climate change goals, and they have been working towards them. First of all, to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 and 100% by 2040, to transition their entire fleet to zero emission vehicles by 2040, reduce their buildings energy consumption by at least 30%, and the most important from this project points of view, to reduce their to power the city operations and their facilities with 80% renewable energy by 2030 and by 100% by 2050. So keeping in mind these energy goals, they came up with this problem statement to develop plans for their paratransit facility. That's the location of the site. It's located on Junction Road in Durham, and they wanted me to come up with some funding sources as well. As you can see, there is a solar power plant next to the site, and so the first option that came to mind was solar to for the backup power infrastructure, and the other options are a battery energy storage system and a generator with different fuel options. So let's start with solar. So the total land available is around 11 acres, out of which 5 to 6 acres is available for solar microgrid, which is barely enough for 1 megawatt solar power. And if you consider the demand, the city of Durham will have around 20 electric buses by mid of 2026, and each bus has a capacity of around 686 kilowatt hour. So considering 75% utilization, that comes around 514 kilowatt hour daily. And if you consider the total energy demand for 20 electric buses, it comes around to be 10 megawatt hour daily. So if you consider a typical 1 megawatt solar plant in the city of Durham, so on an average, it generates around 3.8 megawatt hour daily. This data I was able to gather from Cypress Creek Renewables, and on the worst day, a 1 megawatt solar plant generates around 2.4 megawatt hour of energy. So that's barely enough to cover just the 1/4 of our demand. Coming on the cost side, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So coming on the cost side, a typical 1 megawatt solar array would cost around $5.5 million, including the engineering permits and construction costs. And the annual operation and maintenance cost would go around $20,000. So on the positive side, solar microgrid would help to advance cities' climate goals, capitalize on their 5 acres of the land, and it is eligible for multiple funding sources, and can be useful to offset the utility bill cost. But on the downside, standalone solar is not sufficient to fully meet the load demand. It's not a reliable backup power source, considering its weather dependency and limited daylight hour generation. So solar can be perceived as a cost-saving alternative, but is not suitable for backup power source. So the second option, battery energy storage system, has already determined the energy demand per day is around 10.3 megawatt hours. So even if you consider a scenario just for 2 days backup power, the energy demand would be around 23 megawatt hour. and a typical lithium-ion battery energy storage system of 23 megawatt hour would cost somewhere in the range of $8.5 million, and it has a huge annual operation and maintenance cost as well. That would go around $80,000. So a battery energy storage system, though it provides a clean power and has a fast response time, but considering the huge upfront cost and just the limited 1 to 2 days of backup power, is generally not suitable as a backup power source. So, uh, as solar is not suitable to meet the load demand, and battery energy storage system is quite capital intensive. Even if we combine them, unless we are able to pour a significant amount of investment, it is not going to fulfill our need. But there is a supplement solution. Given that Duke Energy's solar export compensation is lower than their retail electricity rate, so storing and using the solar energy on site is more cost effective than selling it back to the grid. So these calculations were done keeping in mind to reduce the annual electricity bill rather than acting as a backup power source. So if we combine 1 megawatt solar power plant with 600 kilowatt of batteries, so this data I was able to gather from my colleagues in Cypress Creek. So they use this software in which they combine the tariffs and how much battery power would be required to maximize annual electricity savings. So the number comes around to be 600 kilowatts of batteries, and with this combination, city can save around 1/3 on the electricity bills. So such a system would cost around $6 million with 30,000 in annual O&M. So solar plus BES can be used as a cost-saving solution to reduce grid dependency during normal operations. Now coming back to the backup power source as the most commonly used generators. So for 10.3 megawatt hour daily energy demand, a 2 megawatt hour, a 2 megawatt capacity generator would be sufficient for this need, even considering the entire fleet would be in operation. Such a system would cost around just 485 grants with 1200 annual maintenance cost. So if you consider different fueling option, diesel, renewable natural gas, and propane, the issue with diesel is that high greenhouse gas emissions. On the natural gas, though it has lower emissions, but there is a significant investment in capex if the existing pipeline is not available. And for propane, it needs to be stored under pressure in the tank. And even after that, it just gives 10 to 15% lower emissions. So the best alternative would be renewable diesel. Its emissions are 60 to 70% lower compared to diesel, though it has a bit higher cost on the fuel side, but that can be mitigated with a few of the grants. It is eligible for excise tax grant under IRC, Internal Revenue Code. So a renewable generator is the most cost-effective backup solution for extended outages and resilience. So it has the lowest capital cost among all the options. It has high reliability and resilience. The emissions are lower as well and eligible for tax credits. Now coming on the funding sources. So to fund this
So
project.
I have a quick question. This is just for backup power?
Yeah, the project was related
It's
to
not
backup
for
power.
every day.
Well, the
Okay.
solar plus bless analysis was for daily use, right?
Yeah, we started for looking at the backup power source, but they have the extra 5 to 6 acres of land, so that can be used for solar to offset the electricity bills.
And also, just to add what you said, is this solution that Viva has worked on is for the electric buses that Durham is about to expand and deploy. So it is focused on that specific load and need, right?
Yeah. And the generator option, it won't be in operation on the daily basis. It will be just for the power outages, so it won't affect the city's climate goals as well. So now coming to funding sources. So in last 2 months, I was able to analyze all these funds, federal, state, and few of the NGOs and foundations under federal. Most of the programs are under IRA, Inflation Reduction Act. There are few of the tax credits and multiple programs, out of which I was able to identify a few of the funding sources that this project might be eligible for. So the first one is North Carolina Clean Fuel Advanced Technology project grant. So it basically aims at reducing transportation-related emissions in 24 eligible counties. Durham is one of them. And for this, though they have not explicitly mentioned solar and battery energy storage system, but they have equipment purchase, lease installation, commission and operation and maintenance cost. So our project might be eligible for this funding. The total funds available are around $6 million. The application deadline was on March 14th, but they are expected to open again in early 2026. Similarly, under federal government diesel emission reduction act, so it is also aimed at reducing the emissions from heavy duty vehicles and replacement of existing buses with ZEBs. The application deadline was January 31st, but they will open again in 2026. And coming on the IRA and the EPA Environmental Protection Act Clean Heavy Duty program, it explicitly covers purchasing, installing, operating, and maintaining infrastructure need to charge or fuel zero emission vehicles. So solar plus battery storage elements for the backup power infrastructure of the EV fleet would qualify under this project. The application deadline was July 23rd. But for the year 2025 or 2026, no new notice for funding opportunities has been issued yet. But after the new passage of reconciliation bill, these are subject to change. Yeah, the rules and regulations are changing on daily basis, so it's getting complicated.
Yeah, they are.
So, and these are a few of the tax credit for solar and battery storage. They can go up to 6% or as high as 30% if a few of the conditions are met and the solar project meets these conditions. And yeah, similarly, I have analyzed all this fund. I have documented them and will be delivering it in my final deliverables. So thank you so much. Now I pass it on to Benedicto to present this.
Just to add quickly to support what you said, Vaibhav has been working directly with Brian here, and we had the opportunity to collaborate with EDF, have had a partnership for over 5 years, and thanks to this, we were able to collaborate and support the fellows. And yeah, wonder if you want to give a few words just
Absolutely.
to talk about the experience, the process.
The process was wonderful. I mean, I could not thank the EDF more than we did not have the resources necessary to do some of this analysis at this time. And, you know, given our ambitious zero emission goals, but also that we know this time next year, 1/3 of our bus fleet in Durham will be electric. That discussion about having backup solution is critical in events of prolonged outage of more than a day, where it is necessary for the over 21,000 people we serve every day in the city of Durham. So as we're looking at some facility updates, as we're looking at some new infrastructure, when we get 14 more electric buses early next year, this was critical to kind of consider some of the trade-offs with these different backup power options. So Vaibhav has been great to work with. He really had limited guidance. We gave him some initial assumptions, but just the level of professionalism and the skill and knowledge base that he has, it was a perfect fit. So we really enjoyed this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that.
Benedicto.
Okay. Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Benedicto Anggita Prayoga Saragi. You can call me Ben. It's too long, so just call me Ben. I'm going to share a bit about my research with Jesse Durham here about the EV charging infrastructure strategy for equitable and scalable deployment in North Carolina. Basically, I want to introduce myself a bit. I just graduated, fortunately, last month from Columbia, majoring in sustainability management, focusing on climate finance. Previously, I worked as an environmental engineer and graduated from Bandung Technology in Indonesia. I came from Indonesia and got scholarship from the Ministry of Finance to study in Colombia and having worked before EDF. I used to work as a corporate banker in Indonesia and in New York as well, with some focus area in sustainable finance, energy transitions, and also climate investment. Yeah. So today we're gonna discuss a bit about the context and visions in the city of Durham and also in the North Carolina as a state. And then the first objective about the Durham 10 million grand design, and then about the 20 million incentive program for the state level, and the funding strategy and way forward. Okay, so this is to start my research. I read a bit about the US charging stations conditions right now. It's taken from the McKinsey Center for Mobility in 2023. So basically, we need about 28 million ports in the US to meet demand for net zero passenger vehicles. It's like we have to achieve a 30% growth per annum to get there. So yeah, where private sector playing pivotal role, not only public sector here. So as you can see on the graph, it's almost dominated by the private. Then let's sharpen in the scope to the North Carolina. We can lead a clean transportation era, but there's a gap that can be closed. See on the left part, actually with smart public investment, we can deliver in the state level almost 14 billion in health and climate benefits, and more than 33K new jobs, especially in the green jobs, and also savings for drivers, almost 8K per year. But as you can see on the right, there's a red part there. 36% of our GHG emissions came from transportation sectors, and it's really huge, almost 40% of that. And currently we have 2,500 public chargers, but we need additional 8K more to achieve that goal in 2030 or sooner. And still less than 10% of the chargers in Tier 1 counties or not in this or in the AC area. And also less than 2% of multifamily housing units have access. So it's still not that big of a number. Then, so what's the strategy actually? So EVCI or EV infrastructures betas require a public investment here to de-risk the deployment. We have some barriers, let's say high capex, long return of investment, and absolutely very low IRR. Me and Jesse did a simple calculations, a financial analysis. If we do not put public fund or public investment here, the internal rate of return is going to be under 6%. So it's very low. There's an important role for public funds to be tapped into here. And also how public investment can help. First, that it can help with the de-risking the early capital, which I'm going to show you the calculations after this. And it can attract private co-investment here, increasing the IRR. So, of course, increasing more than 6% to attract more private investment to come here. Targeting disadvantaged zones, the AC area. And also there's a theory and research also from DOE Loan Program Office, from World Economic Forum, and also Rocky Mountain that state that public funding has been shown to unlock 3 until 5 US dollar in private capital for every $1 of public investment in clean infrastructure. So let's see, is it real or not? before we dive into the calculations, yeah, we have to prove the theory, right? This is the hypothesis at least. Yeah, this is a research from McKinsey as well. Subsidies can meaningfully change the economics of a public fast charging station. On the left, as you can see, this is the scenario without subsidies or public funds into a project, especially in the electric vehicle. They did a research for 1 stations with 4 ports DC fast charging. So you can see here, I'll show the pointer so it can be easier for us to see. See, there's a minus in the earning before interest and tax here because of the high capex or the high capital expenditures. But on the right, there's an interventions from a public funds here that help the earning before interest and tax to make a positive way. So let's see to the first objective in the city of Durham. So the city, we try to create 4 goals here with this project before we dive into the calculations To deploy equity proceeding, the targeting Justice 40, even though the government just deleted the website, but we still have the spirit to deploy these equity proceedings, and also align with the state executive order at 246 zones. And also we want to encourage the PPP or public-private partnership with the blended finance mechanism here to mix grants, co-investment, and utility support, so the public funds not work by itself, but we want to invite other private investment to tap into this project. So yeah, we work on this project together and increase the IRR. So as you can see, World Bank, IFC, and International Energy Agency already have a theory that, so if we want to invite private sector, you have to increase the internal rate of return to 12% minimum. So okay, we want to try to help that, to get that number. And of course, with this first year deployment, we want to get new almost 100 green jobs and avoid 30K metric ton CO2. And hopefully it can be scalable to other city like Raleigh and also Fairfield. And before that, we have to have a robust checklist and also deployment plan, starting with creative governance and plannings like steering committee together with the city, MPO, and Duke Energy and other communities, map the current assets and gaps using G40 and C.dot equipment. We have a lot of tools here. And then site selections, prioritize Navy corridors, targeting the AC area, coordinate with folks in Duke, confirm sites. And also before that, we have to see, and I create a simple with Jesse readiness criteria on above. Within it should be located in the Navy corridors. If it's corridor site, prioritize in G40 area, grid capacity confirmed, ADA 100% compliant access, ownership secured, no zoning or permitting complex, and also committee engagement completed. Then we can deploy the capital and the procurement as well before build and operate in a sustainable way. Okay, so this is some revenue models and operating models that we offer. Depends on, as you can see on the very right, there's a best use for. So let's say the first model like public grant coordinator, it's 100% owned by the public. So what's this model best use for? It's for the area where community charges in equity priority, which is like almost no private sectors have appetite to tap into, there where public grants can be helping it. Then, but we encourage the city to have a collaboration in the blue area with public-private partnership, let's say with the utility, with the friends from Duke. Best use for highway corridors or Navy sites because there's a great reliability and utility arbors are critical there. And also PPP specifically with private host or operator, let's say like Harris Teeter, Whole Foods, kind of like that, so we can collaborate with them. Retail, commercial, and multifamily locations, and also hybrid. Hybrids means for a project that scale or innovative, including concessional finance there, concessional loan. This is the simple, we create a simple model. This is just the result. So from our calculations, public-private partnership structures enables 2.3 times more stations in year first and avoid 11 years delays seen in grant models only. So on the public grant model, we 100% use this $10 million US. But for the public-private partnerships, we only use 44 grants in a location. So this is we create a model for locations with four port stations. Then, in a nutshell, the station that can be deployed in the first year for public grant model is 60 stations with 64 ports. But if we use PPP, we can build 37 stations with 148 ports. And as you can see on the bottom here, it will take 11 years to reach the same 37 stations that PPP models achieved in just year 4. So we remember the first graph from McKinsey that we need to increase the deployment and development 34% every single year. So we have to build this in a massive scale. And from this theory, it's a bit lower from the World Bank said. So from our calculations, every $1 in public funds attract $1.3 US in private capital, still more than $1. So yeah, it's proof it's invite more than $1 private capital here. This is the sensitivity analysis that we did. So a 43% or 44% grants enabled 12% IRR, the internal rate of return that we want to achieve, at 0.35 dollar per kilowatt hour at charging price. So as you can see here, this is the public grants portion that we want to achieve with average charging price 0.35 dollar per kilowatt hour in the state. So basically, if we want to increase the public grant portions to get 12% of IRR, we can reduce the charging price. But if we want to reduce the public grant portions, let's say to 10-20%, if depends on the city policy, then we can increase the charging price to get the 12% of internal rate of returns. So, but as you can see, me and Jesse tried to compare electricity price per kilowatt hour with groceries and also with gasoline. As you can see, we compare electricity per kilowatt hour with gasoline per gallon, with even eggs per dozens and milk per gallon, and also specifically navel orange per pound, and it's much remarkably stable. So come back to the previous slide. It should be not that far, should be around $0.35 per kilowatt hour of charging price to get the 12% of IRR with the 43 current portions. So besides the quantitative aspect, we try also to create a simple equity and also sustainability frameworks to make sure that the equity delivered, the sustainability and environmental aspect delivered. For the first one is equity in geographics aspect. At least we want to try to build more than 30% chargers in rural or peri-urban zones. Equity in demographic aspect, more than 40% of chargers benefits in DAC's area. Equity in transit or ADA aspect, 100% should be ADA compliance, no doubt on that. And also equity in multifamily housings, at least more than one public or shared charger per 200 multifamily housings units. And for the sustainability aspect, we have sustainability aspect in operationals with more than or at least 97% annual uptime. In financial sustainability aspect, more than 50% O&M cost recovered by year 5, which we already created a model and it's proved. And also environmental sustainability aspect, we hope we can electrify this from 100% resilience electricity, either renewables or not renewables, but resilience. And also sustainability in workforce aspect, like 30 to 40% at least jobs in underrepresented group. And then this is the recommendation area for the city of Durham. We try to identify the CG40 area. Is it right or not to build in this area? I just give some options. It's not like a mandatory to follow, but it's like a reference that what we learn. So 5 million for corridor sites can be built with the utility and public partnership with friends from Duke Energy, and also 4.7 should be built in the community sites with private host PPP. So there's some locations like American Tobacco District. Why? Because major downtown destination, existing parking decks close to NC 147 and I-40, and street points like in South Durham, large regional shopping area, high vehicle traffic, and will expand charging access as well in underserved area in Durham. And downtown civic center, this city-owned parking garage, and also serves downtown residents within next to designated low-income zone. This interesting wall town village that has I-86 corridor. Yes, it's Justice 40 community area. There has a very robust historical story there, African-American neighborhood. Currently few if there are any public charges nearby. And also NC 55 at Durham Tech in the southwest, because this area along the NC 55, close to I-40 exits, high traffic corridor, and will serve students and also surroundings. So this is the recommendations. And we can jump to the second objective, which is access. So how do I approach the second objective? Basically, we try to learn from New Jersey. They have like a punchline there called IPPI. California have Energize. New York have New York TVIP. So we try to create like a simple name. We try to create the access. So access means of accelerating clean charging equitably statewide, 20 million incentive program. So we have 6 strategic goals because the states not have those programs yet like other states. The first one is to infrastructure expansions. It will enable more than 5K new charging ports and equitable development. At least 40% funds go to G40 area. Emission and air quality, we calculate we can avoid almost 25K, more than 25K metric tons per year of CO2. Economic growth for green jobs, reliable and scalable infrastructure, and also leverage and collaborations. This is a graph from the Center for Future Mobility in McKinsey. While electric vehicle drivers now do most of their charging at home, but more public charging will be needed as demand grows. So this is in 2022 is still dominated by residentials and public, but in 2030 still by residential and public. So this approach, this data takes us to create 4 robust tracks to deploy this 20 million. So how to deploy this 20 million US dollar? We try to create a 4 tracks framework. The first one, as you can see, taking one of the biggest portions as the first track, public charging infrastructures with 6 million or 30% of the incentive. The purpose is to build publicly accessible EV chargings. Applicant could be local governments, utilities, NGO, businesses. Structures could be rebate for L2, competitive grants for DCFCs. And the second track is community residential and residential L2. We know that this is going to be take a bigger portions in 2030, and also right now, the purpose is to build inclusive L2 in home, workplace, community charging, condos, apartments, homes, public sites, and the applicants could be homeowners, landlords, employers, municipalities, and the structures could be like rebates, technical assistance. And the third one, we have fleet depot charging. This is maybe the smallest portions with not that big impact, but we still want to touch this sector because we want to electrify every single aspect of these sectors in some stations. The purpose is to build non-public depot charging for fleets, typically for lower power needs. The applicant could be private fleets, schools, and municipalities. Structure could be competitive grants that can cover 40 to 50% of project costs. Last but not least is the medium heavy duty vehicle for heavy trucks, heavy buses. The purpose is to build infrastructure for transit buses, trucks, and also freight fleets. Sometimes because it high impact costs, at some cases it needs more than 350 kilowatt chargers. And then applicants could be transit agency, logistic hub, schools, and can be competitive grants for the structures that covering 50 to 60% of the capex. We try to calculate, is it really impactful or not? If it's not impactful, well, we don't have to do this. Then we try to create a simulations where the track 2 delivers highest CO2 avoidance per dollar. In the total, basically, we hope we can build 5K new charging ports, avoiding 25K metric ton CO2, which is equal to eliminating or changing almost 6K ICE internal combustion engine cars per year. And over 10 years or over 1 decade, we can avoid like 250,000 metric ton CO2. With public charging can deploy like more or less 50 DCFC that can avoid 2,500 tons per year CO2. In the second track, we can build more or less 800 L2 public ports, and also in home chargers 4K home L2 that can avoid 22K tons per year CO2. In the track 3, we can deploy 30 to 40 depot chargers that can avoid 800 tons per year CO2. And the last track can deploy 10 to 12 heavy duty chargings that can avoid 1,500 tons CO2 per year. So this is the timeline. We have to have a coordinated timeline with defined stakeholders and roles as well. As we can see, we are here with our own roles as a different perspective. I think it's going to be a robust solution if we can combine it all together. Phase 1 can be a program setup in Q2 25 and Q2 26. Phase 2 and on the grand launch, Q3 until Q4 26. Phase 3 where the deployment starts, Q1 until Q2 2027, and monitoring scale in the third quarter of 2027 onwards. So who is the related stakeholders that have to involve in this project? First, like lead agency could be NCDAQ or NCDOT that could set policy guardrails. Program administrator, which is like an NCC ETC or NCCEF, which is a green bank that can manage the application portal. Local governments as the applicants, equipment providers or contractors, the folks that can help us to install and maintain. Electric utilities, Duke Energy that make radio upgrades, manage grid interconnection as well. Community and EG advocates, regulator and permitting agencies, and also fleet and public users where they're gonna share insights, testimonial feedback, and also support awareness. This slide is actually built for adjusting the incentive. So it's called like incentive adjustment mechanism. So for the area or for folks in a very G40 area, we can adjust the structure. For the front end, We can have a geographic priority, like a DAC area, high need zones, use case eligibility, project serving affordable housing, applicant focus. We can prioritize on small, minority, women, tribal folks, and also composting scoring. And in the back-end area, in the back-end program adjustment, like for this area, we can adjust the cost shares, like up to 75% perhaps for special cases, increase the caps, reserve set-asides, bonus add-ons, equity-only windows, and also equity weight scoring. And this is the investment stack or blended investment stack, the strategic blended investment stack. So how actually, like Faber said, we already try to map some funding sources. So it's not alone the public government, the access 20 million won't work alone. We can see the philanthropic here. We identified as a Christian Bloomberg as well to be in this project. Federal grants such as CIY, DOE Clean School Bus, EPA, and Navy formula as well that can covers up to 80%, where access can cover the rest of it. Until middle of 2026, we still have IRA 30C. Yeah, before that. And utility programs from Duke, state and locals, programs like VW Settlement, Air Quality Fund, CMAQ or CMAQ, and absolutely the brown one, private or PPP co-foundings. And we try to map a smart stacking strategy so this deployment can be inclusive and realized. Like first one is cap rule. The maximum of total support is 100% of the total project cost, no over subsidizations. Layering, which is create a stack of that, combined source like CMAQ 80%, access NC 10%, local match, bulk support, coordinated with the procurement to reduce the unit cost, create revenue models, include like additional revenue models like advertising, leasing, or rentals to co-founds, and also leverage ratio, where access can, from our model, can become a catalytic capital or catalytic value that can invite other private capital to join this project. So yeah, we believe that by blending equity, innovation, and investment, Durham and North Carolina can lead the nations with an EV charging network that powers communities, drives economic growth, and also secures a cleaner future for all. That's all from me. Thank you so much for joining the presentation.
Yeah, great work, both of you. Just want to say that, yeah, have had the fortune to be able to learn from you guys. You guys are the experts on the room. You guys have been investing this summer, putting together these two products. And just to mention, these are two challenges or issues that are tangible. One of them is having, by BAVs, having a resiliency option for the buses that Durham has. So if you're running the buses, you want to make sure that those buses go on route even if the power is out. So you want to have the option to have those vehicles fueled. And Benedicto's it was a portion of two real world examples. Like Durham got about 10 million of funding for deploying charging infrastructure. And the exercise here is to see what is the best way to be able to have that funding be a seed funding that can expand the network. And it is something that is important given that Bloomberg, New Energy Finance, they just made a new analysis saying that what's going to be the growth of electric vehicles in this coming future. And like, as we all know, we know that incentives are being removed, and essentially lots of pools of funding that we're going to expand this network are being stopped right now. But Bloomberg was able to see that even by having these shortfalls, these barriers, 2025 is going to be again another record year of electric vehicles. So we'll start to continue to see that growth on the charging infrastructure needs, given that the population of vehicles is going to grow. So both are real world examples that these are structures that can be replicated or building blocks that can be taken to be able to grow this network, given that we have the opportunity to be able to influence it and make sure that, one, this network works, two, it is accessible, and three, can be serviced if something breaks. So want to congratulate you both again. You both have put a lot of time on this, and appreciate you focusing specifically on these projects. And as I said earlier, these are finalized products. These are structures that essentially are future-proofed. Again, want to thank City of Durham, Brian, for the partnership and walking together with the fellows that come with great experience and have folks that have been, we've been fortunate to have them, given that they're sharing the time with us. And thanks to EDF again for having, this partnership that we have had for almost 5 years now, and we continue to grow it. So just wanted to say this and want to open it up for feedback, for questions that you guys have for Benedicto and Vaibhav. So yeah, please.
First, I have to say I'm super excited for both of your presentations, having been involved really early on, kind of like in city's initial interest in backup power to support transportation, and now the charging and fueling infrastructure projects that are underway. Just really excited. So, you do work all the time, and sometimes it's like throwing darts at a wall. You're hoping something lands, and to see your analysis now helps me know that it's still landing, right? It still has a place. It hasn't been forgotten. It didn't pass away. And so I'm very excited to see both of the projects at this stage in a development, or at least being continuing to be studied. And then Benedito, you talked about geographic equity in the CFI project deployment, and you talked about rural access in the city of Durham. And I'm like, what does that look like for the city of Durham? What rural access is there within the city limits? I don't know, right? Well, it's a consideration. And so wondering what that implication means for the CFI project for Durham. And then you identified some community locations that have priority, and I want to know what went into that prioritization, because initially in the application we had a geographic prioritization that we were funded within, and I don't see many of those geographies represented in the initial identification, at least in analysis. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way, for the questions. So for the equity in geography aspect, we use two methods here. First, we use the CG40, the Committed Justice 40 from the federal website, and also from the website that we saved before. And the other one is from the Navy. There's like tools to see where area is pretty similar to what CG40 did. So basically, that's what we define as a geographic and equity area. So we want to make sure that the projects deployed to the area that identify as underserved or DAC communities and tribal, kinds of like that. Yeah.
And just to back up what you said is, like, this exercise was again to be able to see, come with another lens and see what other areas could be identified as charging deserts that could be prioritized to make sure that the benefits are expanded broadly. And I want to apologize. Whenever we were in the round of introductions, I missed.
I wasn't here. I can't believe. So please, not on you. Yeah, no problem at all. And I have a question too. Probably a couple. So I'm Tom Delvisio, and I'm the guy up on the chart that was the Duke collaborator guy. That's me. So I'm a regional electrification manager at Duke. I cover the Carolinas, and I'm on a purpose-built team at Duke called Transportation Electrification Grid Readiness, which is a mouthful, but TEGR for short. And what we do at Duke is we are here in support of this segment. So fleet electrification and public charging. We recognize that the utility and just in general, that the transportation sector and the electric utility sector have not been bedfellows historically, but we are all now rammed together. The grid wasn't built for transportation, but in many ways, transportation fits very well in certain use cases with the grid that we have. A lot of this charging is overnight, and overnight we would enjoy a little bit more utilization of the system. So that allows us to extend the useful life of what we have on the system, get more value out of it, and therefore hopefully push downward pressure on rates. I'm involved in a lot of this stuff already. That's already up on the chart, and I appreciate the comprehensive coverage. couple of things just occurred to me while you both were going through your stuff. There's research in terms of adoption and growth. There's implications in terms of how you spread the benefit of this technology and showcase it, let's say, in front of underserved communities that are not familiar with it. Did you dig any deeper into maybe examples of where EV charging or electric vehicle technology was deployed in neighborhoods that didn't have access to charging, to see if that simply build it and they will come concept panned out? And my question here is that technology, people do adopt technology, but we are slow to adopt technology, especially if we don't feel comfortable and have guidance. And I can give you a personal anecdote from within the utility space where not on a daily basis, thank goodness, but maybe weekly, bi-weekly, I talk to folks that I work with at the electric utility who say, what's with this electric vehicle thing? So, which is kind of crazy, right? But it's human to not understand what's new and then to also resist change. And so if you're trying to deploy for an underserved area, just putting stations and saying, here's stations, jump in, may be short of the kind of commitment you need. So just wondering if there was communities that you researched that have actually implemented these things and what additional measures they may have taken to engage the community around adoption. And there's a little bit of maybe a deeper analysis than you did initially, but just interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I got a bit. Maybe two important stuff is, the first one is capacity building. I think capacity building became a crucial step that have to pass for like a tech adoptions or stuff like that. Something new came, then capacity building became crucial, and after capacity building, you can also do technical assistance or the technical aspects, where invite the experts and anything like that to join and to help assisting the technical aspect of the new tech that can be adopted. So I think capacity building and technical assistance became crucial then.
And just to add, another detail that Benedicto worked on throughout the summer was you created a scenario where this deployment is more equitable. And how that looks like is you structure how much you charge for electricity to be able to have enough funding to, one, repair the stations, to expand the network, but three, share incentives with the folks that are sharing their community to have charging infrastructure in that area. And that looked like, for example, if we saw 35 cents was the cost per kilowatt at that general location, the analysis that Benedicto created was able to allocate a portion of the funding to providing actual monetary incentives to the folks that live in that area to pay less for charging and pay close to what they would pay if they had a garage or if they own a house, that it is 3 times cheaper than going to a charging station. So this is something that you could share later, that it has the full scope of the analysis that shows with background on how infrastructure has been deployed in the past with the utilization, having a 15% utilization that is fairly low, but is fairly conservative to be able to know if putting this money out there and being able to expand the network in a way that is equitable, it is something that can be done. So this analysis covers that because it was like one of the criteria portions to be able to provide a product at the end. And this one incorporates that, also like training for staff that could be local as well. So that is something that it is in the details that Benedicto could share later, because it is one of the things that we've been discussing over the past years, that is like, it's great that we're expanding on network, it's great that we're adding charging, but now it is the time that we have the opportunity to be able to make it accessible. And because if we make it accessible, it would make more sense for folks to hop into an electric vehicle, given that the refueling of that vehicle will be significantly lower than what they would pay for gasoline or services on that vehicle or on the previous vehicle.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I think calling out equivalencies for folks is a really powerful tool. Like anybody who's seen me speak publicly, I constantly do this, which is like, okay, if you make it make sense to them on their level, if you say grocery prices or gas or navel oranges or whatever it is, and then say, here's what electricity costs, and pair that together, I think it's very effective. It's not just on the residential side either, because there's a lot of, if I primarily work in commercial industrial space, as you talk to your employees and you try to get buy-in for the change that's coming, it's really important to help sort of level set with them and help them understand how it affects the organization's bottom line potentially. So I think it was very comprehensive. I like the way that you kind of paired that together.
And on the flip side of that, I have to say this because these guys, I don't know how much they know, but I know a lot of people in this room know this, but transportation of any kind is transformational for families and their income levels. So you need to keep that in mind when you approach the disadvantaged communities. Most of them don't have any transportation and therefore they aren't able to get a good job. I was on the bus and this guy was trying to go to a job and it was like he was trying to talk the bus driver into taking, he was taking the bus all the way from Raleigh to Chapel Hill for some sort of like fast food job. And he wanted the bus driver, because they were of the same kind of community, he wanted to try to talk the bus driver into dropping him off. He's like, I cannot do that. And I was like, that was a big learning moment for me. And it's so hard to make the buses work for these communities because the jobs are not in downtown areas anymore. So it's like, to me, though, and I've had colleagues that have discussed how to make this equitable. And, one of my very respected colleagues who's been in this solar business since day one, since the 70s, and now he's seeing, all this solar. I said, did you ever expect this in your lifetime? He's like, no. He had the idea to take the Leafs and take them, because they're all coming off leases, no one's buying them anymore, and trying to give these cars to these communities, somehow. So I leave you, Durham, with that thought. And, many of them don't even have driver's licenses. So, it becomes a big problem very quickly. And no one's, no, they don't have family members that can help them make these steps either. They have no financial analysis ability. They don't have any of that.
And to your point, it is the type of thing that has been proven in other areas, like Minnesota, for example. Minnesota has a program that they have a pool of 100 vehicles that are parked throughout the city. And you can, if we were a resident of Minnesota and we meet certain criteria, we can book that vehicle, use it to go for a hospital appointment.
That's what I was going to say. Hospital appointments would be easy.
And it comes to the price of being, I think it was like $2 per trip. So it was a price that it was significantly cheaper than what you would pay in bus, but you will have the reliability that you could go to your appointment, be at your appointment, be able to come back to the place that you started. And it gives the option to folks to leave the vehicles scattered throughout the city. And those vehicles have a curb charging, level 2 charging. So the vehicle is plugged next to the curb along the city. So it is a type of thing that we have the opportunity to be able to come with this mindset and make the transition slightly more equitable, or be able to share the benefits in a way that, touches more houses. And the point that of what you were mentioning earlier is having charging infrastructure that can be installed at a house, or can be level 2, lower capacity, less power. It is a solution that works in all scenarios. We've seen these being implemented in other states, in other regions, in other countries as well. And we see that at the end is, given that it is the most affordable way to deploy the charging infrastructure, it is the same way that provides the best benefit to reduce emissions. So it has all these additional ripple effects that just by following the objective to try to make it equitable and make it more accessible, it touches many other benefits that would help suffice this. So folks are able to go have an option to not take the bus and have reliable transportation, for example. So
Where else are you planning to share your analysis? I can think of one place, so Southeast Sustainability Directors Network. Folks would be really interested in analysis, especially the pricing part on EV charging. People have been, how do we figure this out? And
yeah, I can get you connected with them. So if you want to share it, yeah, it's a good idea.
We're happy to. Thanks.
And it is again, by Babis is thinking on ways to go beyond. So he's bringing the solutions or the options to be able to have an alternative and have lower pressure on the grid, for example, on the electricity grid, and be able to support one another by having solutions that can provide electricity to a service that needs to continue to operate in any circumstance, because it connects again to what will happen if on Monday all the buses need to leave at 5 a.m. and there was no electricity last night and all the buses were electric. Like, how do we do this? So it is fixing that that little anxiety that might be there to be able to cover the what ifs that are most likely. We have a really strong network. We have a really strong electricity grid, but just having the option just provides an option whenever the if happens.
It seems like an enormous, because all the buses are going to be at one location, right? And it seems to me an enormous risk to have all the buses at one location from an electricity resilience standpoint. I think Tom would agree with me on that. And so one solution might be to have two locations and have your risk. It is, if you're going to put in solar and battery and all that, certainly you would not consider that. But given the costs and complexity of doing that, and I'm glad you went and did it, but just the scale that you guys are doing it at because of the sheer number of buses. I mean, it shows a lot about scale, and it even speaks to fleet reliability too. It's not just you all that need the reliability, it's fleets too. And you know, there's a lot of metrics that go into reliability. And